That's one whale of a storm. We better run and hide.
It'll be your hide if you turn tail, Percy. Be brave. Brave the waves. Look, it's Bravery Cave. You have to go inside.
I'm not brave.
Oh, yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. You have to go inside.
I'm scared, Laughingstock.
Good evening, Perry.
I own a motel not too far from here, and you'd be welcome to spend the night in one of the empty rooms if you'd like.
It burns! Oh, it burns! And I'm the devil.
Joining us on the Necronomicast hotline, the Newsmaker hotline. We got a newsmaker here. Mr. Nick Antosca joins the show again. We had Nick on the show, episode 124, back in January of 2016, when he was location scouting for Channel Zero, Candle Cove. And now here we are, 2017, and we're getting ready for the debut, the premiere of season 2. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, yeah, man. I think you're one of our first. You might be the first repeat customers here on the show, but it's because you're making waves out there in Scary Land. So I'm really excited to be chatting with you about all things Channel Zero. Now, the last time we had you on the show, you were location scouting, and you sent us a cool picture of you, like in Manitoba, I think it was, wearing a parka. And
oh yeah, was I covered in snow? Was I like knee deep in snow?
You looked a little out of your element, that's for sure.
Yeah, we were location scouting, and they would take me to places, and I would look around and be like, "How am I covered in snow?" You know, then we come back and shoot, and everything's green.
Yeah,
like,
right.
That's Canada for you.
I hear you. I loved it. So a lot's happened since the last time we chatted with you. You were location scouting, so you actually made the first season of Channel Zero, and it debuted. And then SYFY decided to go ahead and they greenlit another 2 seasons after 1 and 2. So you're committed to 4 seasons, and season 2, No End House, comes out September 20th. Is that right?
That's right. We shot it last year, and we did post. And unlike most other shows I've worked on, is not sort of a rolling production. We get it all in the can, and finally the world can see it September 20th, SYFY, and I'm really excited.
Well, I'm really excited to be watching it as well when it comes up in a few weeks. My wife and I, now, when the first season came out, I watched it on SYFY, and I really enjoyed it. And then when we confirmed that we're going to be talking to you again, I invited my wife, who is not into horror movies or scary things like that. I invited her to watch it with me, and she agreed because we binge watch a lot of TV together. And she really enjoyed it. She was totally creeped out by it, but I really liked the fact that it appealed to not just creepy guys like me and my friends and our listeners, but also it bridged and it had a lot that somebody that's that doesn't watch a lot of traditional horror films or horror shows or things like that. There's a lot of things that she could grab onto there. So I have to hand it to you there.
Nice. Well, I'm glad she enjoyed it. I mean, it is. I think not what a lot of people expected. You hear that there's a show, it's SYFY, and it's based on creepypastas. I think that the natural expectation is it's going to be in the zone of like Tales from the Crypt or something, which I love and which I grew up on. But it's a much more campy place to be, and we were more going for something a little stranger, something a little more eerie, and it takes itself seriously while still being fun.
So how do you go about now selecting these stories? Like I went back and read the what Candle Cove was based on, the Chris, is it Straub Chris Straub's writing.
Chris Straub, yeah.
Yeah.
With the original story.
And that was totally cool. And it made me think back. Now, I'm kind of like the age of the kids in the show. Like 1988, I was like 13, and 12, 13. And watching it, I was kind of thinking back to these old school VHS, grainy public access shows that we would kind of flip through and watch. And there's this one in particular, not to bore you, but there was like this guy, an African-American kind of a pastor, and he would film the show in his basement with kind of dim lighting, and he would sing these hymns to Jesus through an old microphone and through a really, really tinny, reverby, overblown amplifier. And it was like the creepiest kind of cool thing to watch, this guy singing these songs and just kind of preaching. And did it make sense? No, but it was just like the aesthetic of him inside this basement with dim lighting, kind of doing his thing. And I'm not making fun of the guy, but I was just kind of, we watched it as kids and just kind of like, wow, man, the pastor, the preacher is on. So like watching Candle Cove, it kind of brought back to me like the kind of the strangeness of like perhaps like a public access show.
Yeah, it's also just the stuff that you saw when you were a kid that stuck with you, right? Things make a different impression on children's brains, I think. And there's stuff that we saw as kids that maybe that either we thought was scary then that wouldn't be scary to an adult, or that didn't strike us as necessarily strange back then, that when you see it as an adult, you're like, oh my God, that is deeply unnatural. And you go back and watch, these weird, obscure puppet shows like Peppermint Park and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of strange British stuff too. And it's like, who made this for children? And that obviously is what inspired Chris Straub, and I think why his story, struck a chord with so many people on the internet. And it certainly struck a chord with me, and that's how we ended up like on a stage with these insane pirate puppets and making the show.
Yeah, and then I think you introduced one of the creepiest characters I've seen anywhere in a long time, Eddie as the Tooth Child. What was the background of like the development of that incredible costume and the whole concept of the Tooth Child?
A lot of stuff in the show comes from nightmares, either mine or the writers, or in some cases in later seasons, No End House, other people involved in the production. And the Tooth Child is really the beginning of that. I mean, the Tooth Child comes from a nightmare that I had when I was originally putting together the pitch for Candle Cove to try and sell it and breaking the first season. And I told the story before, but it almost ended up in Hannibal because I was working on the staff of Hannibal then.
Wow! And
it just felt like it brought together like these themes and kind of things that were under the surface when you thought about childhood and what's scary and what you leave behind. This thing made of baby teeth in the shape of a child just seemed to crystallize some of that stuff. And I never really expected that so many people would find it so disturbing. But that also owes a lot to Francois, who built it, who built the suit. Mm-hmm. And we were very dedicated to having it be like a totally practical effect. That suit is probably the most indelible image, along with the puppets from Candle Cove. I'm glad it just kind of sticks in people's throats.
So to speak, right? Like a meat hook.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious. You brought it up, so I'm going to ask. You originally kind of had it in the back of your mind for Hannibal. Was it when Will's?
Well, no, it originally came. The plan was to put it in Candle Cove, but at the time I didn't even know if the pitch would sell. I mean, we were so early in the process. And I had tried to, go out with this pitch as an anthology show, and it didn't look promising. And then I got hired on Sound of Hannibal, and I really wanted to put this idea in something. And when we were talking about digging into the backstory of like Hannibal eating his sister and what happened to his sister, Misha Lecter, we talked about the idea of him having visions of his sister, and she would be this tooth child. And ultimately, it was abandoned because we decided, well, it's Will who has visions, not Hannibal. I think that was kind of Brian's we don't want too many characters having visions. But it was in drafts of scripts, I think, and ultimately it was cut out. And then later, when I did take the pitch out, I put it back in.
Yeah, it's creepy on so many levels. As a father with young kids, you know where I'm going with this. Sometimes they listen to the show, or I have it on the background, so I got to be careful how I phrase this. But when the Tooth Fairy does come, what happens to what the Tooth Fairy picks up? So I mean, it's creepy on kind of just such a basic human level. It's so creepy, just made out of teeth. And then I'm thinking like, well, where do all these teeth go in this little story that we're weaving for our children? So yeah, I have my hats off to you, man, because I just watching that was just creepy. And then the sound effect with it too, just the kind of the chattering as it walked and moved and kind of creeped around it's totally nightmare fuel, man. So if that came out of your brain,
little crunch that it makes, yeah.
If that came out of your brain,
you gotta trust your nightmares. When you're making this stuff, you gotta trust your nightmares a little bit.
Yeah, right on. And I also enjoyed the character, all the characters, but really the creepiness of Frances Booth, the school teacher, and her ordeal through the years. I thought that was a great character, and I was really it was really exciting to see where her arc of the story was going watching the show.
It's a nod to my high school English teacher, Mr. Booth, who was very influential to me. He told me that I should be a writer.
Wow! So you named it after him?
Yeah. That was fun.
Is he still with us? Does he get the joke?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, he's still teaching.
That's awesome. Well, good for you, man. So that brings us up to No End House, man. No End House. And I've watched the trailers. The trailers are online. We'll link to it from the show. But it says, as one door closes, another terrifying one opens. Get a first look here with this trailer. So what's kind of the premise behind No End House?
So No End House is based on a creepypasta by Brian Russell, which has this beautiful, disturbing concept of a haunted house, the kind of a fun house that you go to. And this one in particular has a series of rooms. Each one is more terrifying than the last. And it's a challenge whether or not you can get through all of them. And then in the story, a guy thinks he's left the house, and then he starts to realize that he hasn't, or maybe he hasn't. In our adaptation, it's about a young woman played by Amy Forsyth, an amazing actress, who has gone through something traumatic, and when she goes into the house, she gradually starts to realize that as she goes deeper and deeper, the house is digging deeper and deeper into her mind and using what it finds there against her. And when she finally thinks she's escaped the house, she starts to realize that she's only just starting to get into the nightmare. So over the course of the season, we explore how the house is using what it found in her head against her.
Wow! So this is a fun house, not so much a haunted house.
Yeah, well, it's not a haunted house in the sense of like people move into a house and there's ghosts upstairs. It's in this you and your friends go to a Halloween Horror Night kind of fun house.
Sweet. So that's season 2, and there's 6 episodes to that. Is that kind of the plan going ahead with seasons 3 and 4, that there's going to be kind of 6 in each season?
Yes, there will always be 6 episodes. Every season is directed by a different director, so they feel totally different. Season 2 is directed by Stephen Pyatt, who made a film I saw called Uncle John and tracked him down. He's a terrific director. And when people sit down to watch No End House, they will have a totally different experience than they did watching Cannibal Cove, except that it's very disturbing, it's terrifying, and it's psychological horror.
I like the fact that you kind of have that consistency of a single director's vision for each season. It's one of the things that I liked about watching like True Detective on HBO, was that there was like one director's vision through the season, even though you have different flavors of writers.
Well, the difference is what we want to do is what True Detective would have been if, when they came back after the first season, they had one director for the second season. Because what I loved about season 1 of True Detective was Fukunaga did such amazing work directing the first season. And then, but when they came back for the second season, I don't know why, but then they went to different directors, for different episodes. And I wish that they had, I'd heard that maybe like William Friedkin was going to come in and do the season, or a couple other great directors. And I wish that they had done that. And so that's what I really want to do is have every season be a showcase for a really exciting emerging talent. And, read Craig McNeil the first season, Stephen the second season. We have a really wonderful director who's going to be announced soon. She's doing amazing work on season 3. And so every season will have a totally different flavor. And we start from scratch too in the writer's room, not in terms of people, but in terms of the concept. And we just envision it as a different flavor of horror, a different style. The first season I think of as very Stephen King. The second season is much more John Carpenter. The third season is going to be a little more Argento. So we want to have a different experience every time.
Oh, I see. No, I was mistaken. I thought season 2 of True Detective only had one director. Whoops. so
no, yeah. I mean that was like, I would love to see like the Darren Aronofsky season of True Detective, that kind of thing. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe they will for season 3.
No. When you're in a writing room and you're the show kind of creator, the front runner, you developed it for television, an executive producer and writing for it, and you've got your writers with you. Guide me through a little bit of I'm intrigued by the writing room. Like, do you guys pitch ideas and you kind of like say, well, this is where I want it to end, and then people come up with the middle of the of the season, or how does that guide through the process of coming up with all these character arcs and where you want the show to go?
Well, it starts with the story that we're basing the season on, right?
Uh-huh.
I pick a creepypasta, and I do that based on just whether it grabs me, and it has to have a clean premise, and it has to have room to expand. So the first season is a haunted TV show. The second season is this house. And then it's like, where do we go from there? So I think of every season as like the nightmare that you have after you read the creepypasta. Like it grows roots and does surprising things. So I like do that part in my own head. And then I come into the room and say, like, here's the story. Here's what I want to do with it. And then people like bring their stuff. It's a very collaborative writer's room. And people, take the premise and I usually have a sort of a skeleton of where I want it to go, and roughly where it ends. And then we spend a couple of weeks just breaking it out in more detail. And we have, as you know, Don Mancini writes for the show, Harley Payton. It's a really interesting and creative writer's room. And we just spend a couple months, breaking it and then writing all the episodes and reading each other's drafts. And it just sort of, it comes out of everybody's bad dreams.
Amazing. So No End House is season 2. Now you filmed it after season 1. Did you do it immediately afterwards? I know you said you wrote season 1 and 2 back to back. Is that right?
Kinda. We do them in 2 seasons in a room because normally a show would be sometimes 12 episodes a season. We do 6 episode seasons, so we'll do 2 seasons in one room usually.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did the first time. So I was working on some of the last couple scripts for No End House while we were shooting Candle Cove. We finished shooting Candle Cove end of last summer. Had about a month break. We were in prep on No End House already, and then we started shooting No End House. We shot it all through the fall. Finished, I think, November. And it's we shoot in Winnipeg and Manitoba. It can sort of look like anywhere. It's a really wonderful place to shoot in, and then we do post in LA. So it's back to LA.
Wow. So you're filming it kind of finishing the filming when season 1 is actually airing. Do you ever go back? So if it's on TV, do you ever kind of, I don't know, read the dailies or read the trades and then maybe tweak it a little bit while you're working on it because of, audience reaction or anything, or you got your vision and like, we're doing it?
No, it's the schedule honestly doesn't really allow that. And I'm glad that it doesn't.
Okay.
We were finished filming Candle Cove by the time it aired. Like we were in post though. So, I mean, we could have tweaked stuff a little bit for the last couple episodes, but our schedule was really tight on Candle Cove. I mean, we're a low budget show. And, often we use that to our advantage in like practical effects and that kind of stuff. But the schedule for post on season 1 was very tight. I think we delivered the last episode finished on the day that it aired. And
is that right? Wow.
Yeah. That's not, not what you usually want to be doing.
How does that happen? I mean, like you say, you delivered it the day. I mean, is somebody like running it into the SYFY's office? Here you go, boss. Or
I mean, it's all technological. I don't know exactly how all the technology, what tubes and stuff. Like it has to go through to get from our post-production facility to the television. But I think they need like some hours to upload it or whatever. But we were doing last bits of color correction on like the day before. So
amazing.
It's and like in some ways that's good. It puts pressure on you, which can be productive. But nobody remembers this now, but the show was originally scheduled to premiere in late September of last year, and it ended up getting pushed 2 weeks into October simply because there wasn't enough time to edit the episodes. So that kind of stuff happens, and that's why it's so nice that we had more time in post on the second season because we had shot it way in advance. We didn't have any more time in production stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But we just had room to breathe. And this is an amazing job. I love making this show, making TV. It's like your brain has to be in like a bunch of different places at once, including when we were shooting No End House, and I would be up in Winnipeg on set, and then flying back to be in the editing room with Craig on Candle Cove. So, it got pretty chaotic. But that's just the nature of the nature of making TV shows.
Yeah, man, cutting it a little close there, Nick, with the with the deadline. That's funny. So, like, when you're working with your director Craig or the next guy Steven, and tell me about the balance about like you're working with a director that obviously you're a fan of, and you hunted him down, you said, and you think he's wonderfully competent. But then, like, do you ever, like, the collaboration process of saying, oh, I kind of wanted to go a little bit more like this, Steven, or, Craig, can you coax the actor to do this a little bit more? I mean, or you kind of stand off a little bit on that, or what's your feeling on that?
I trust our directors implicitly, and I hire people whose creative taste I have great faith in, whose style I love, and I hire them specifically for that season, for what we want for that season. And most of my work is done in the writing and in prep. I like to be on set as much as possible, but the directors, like, they're the director on set. It's their set. So I'll be there, and I'm usually there for particularly big emotional scenes. I don't I don't do the director's job at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say to whoever's directing the season, like, can we get one where he, pushes a little bit more, if there's a little more emotional, or can he pull it back a little? But even that, I don't do that much. Like, I hire directors I trust. And what I'm really looking for every season is a collaborative auteur. And I think that the best auteurs by nature are collaborative. People like Steven and Craig, they'll take ideas from anywhere. They listen to people. They're curators, as you have to be as a showrunner too. So, one of the great pleasures of making this show is working with directors that I admire.
Awesome. So that's season 1 and season 2. Now, season 3, you just you're wrapping up right now, you said?
Yes. We're shooting it right now. Not a whole lot has been officially announced about this season, so I can't say too much. But it's very different from the first two, just like they're very different from each other. We have an awesome director, and it's been a lot of fun. And I'll say I've got blood on my shoes right now from walking in from set where we. There's a lot of blood today.
There was a lot of blood today. That's awesome. So that's season 3, and then what's the schedule? Season 4, I assume it'll start shooting in a couple months, or are you taking some time off? Or?
We're taking a little time off because we don't want to shoot it in Winnipeg in the winter, which is just like life-threateningly cold.
Oh.
I've already started writing it, and I believe we're going to shoot it early next year.
Sweet. And SYFY's been receptive to it. I mean, for them to turn on the green light for 3 and 4. Is this something
SYFY's been wonderful. I mean, this is it's traditionally a bit outside their wheelhouse, and they've been very, very supportive. Even the things that I didn't necessarily expect them to be, because they're not things that a TV network would be encouraging of, like hiring directors who've never done TV before.
Mm-hmm.
They've been very cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to definitely season 2, and then 3 and 4, and hopefully we'll be talking to you when you're prepping 5 and 6 or or whatever. So you go to these places and you're finding these creepypastas and these stories. How hard is it to, a lot of them, they spring to life online. I assume you got lawyers and whatnot that have to kind of go through and track down original authors and,
we the thing about creepypastas is they're like viral urban legends in many cases. Like, you don't know who wrote some of the most popular ones. And we can't adapt a story if we can't find the author, because we have to credit them, we have to pay them. They should, they should get attention for having originated story. So, and I like to keep them in the loop, at least as we're going forward, because like sometimes we change the stories a lot. We take a little concept, we explore a new direction. But even if we do that, I like to keep the author, aware of what's going on and stay in touch with them. So there's been a number of stories that I really wanted to adapt, but we haven't been able to find the author, like for future seasons. That's just the nature of the show that we're doing.
What attracted you to adapting creepypasta stories?
I just felt like there was a wealth of great horror there that nobody had put on screen before. And I thought it was both an opportunity to bring those to light and to be really creative with it, right? Because it's not a novel. It's not fully fleshed out. It's like a brilliant, at its best, a brilliant seed of an idea that can grow into something. So I thought it was really the best of both worlds, and there's a ton of them.
Oh, sure. Gosh, I remember when when you were kind of doing the location scouting when I was talking 2 years ago, I really didn't have a real big concept of the world of creepypasta stories. And so after we talked, I kind of went through, and of course, there's like Slender Man and things like that. But then I was going through some other stories and just reading through, and they were so like you said, they're different and original and things that I haven't read before out of a traditional, horror anthology or a book or something like that. So, it kind of introduced me to a whole new world, and maybe that's just, the technology of the day too, where things are written and shared and, information's just kind of sent out over wires of infinity across the world. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And it's a big canvas. There's a lot of different flavors to do.
So that's it with the Channel Zero, man. We're really excited for season 2, and that's September 20th on SYFY. When you're not writing and working on Channel Zero, you got some other irons in the fire, some things you're working on?
Yeah, of course. There's always some stuff in the background, but Channel Zero is it's a year-round job, and at the moment, like shooting season 3, promoting season 2, writing season 4, so there's only a little spare time, but. Yeah, I'm just super excited for people to see No End House.
I'm super excited too. The trailer looks great, and when you were kind of talking about your schedule, about what you're doing, I was kind of thinking like trying to draw a parallel to like a band. It's like, they write the music for the album, and they go and record the album, and then they tour to promote the album, and then they kind of do that process. But you're kind of like, you're writing and recording and promoting and doing all those things kind of. Like working on an album while you're promoting one, and then it's just real interesting how the entertainment industry works, and I love these little insights that we're able to bring to our listeners, with the people that are bringing us the entertainment. So, Nick,
it's like a weird nightmare conveyor belt. We just keep putting nightmares out in the world for you.
How do you sleep at night?
Really well.
I just didn't know if you like woke up every 2 or 3 hours and have to scribble some notes down or something like that, or you just kind of get up in the morning and leisurely.
I do sleep with a notebook. There's a notebook beside my bed. That's the thing.
Very good. I just could see you like waking up at 3 a.m. when somebody hits a trash can with their car, and you're jolted awake and you're writing something down. And
I love nightmares. Like free money. When I wake up,
it's free money.
Covered in a cold, I'm just like, you wake up shaking in a sweat or something. It doesn't happen enough. But when it does, I'm like, oh shit, people pay money for this experience. But I write it down.
It's a license to print money when Nick Antosca has a nightmare. I love it. That's super cool. Nick, man, I want to thank you for your time on the show, appearing again as our repeat guest. But you got a lot going on, so I'm really glad that you took the time out of your extremely hectic, busy, productive schedule to talk to us again at the Necronomicast. And I also have to thank you for people that have been listening last couple episodes. You helped us hook up with Don Mancini, and man, what a treat that was. What a
Oh yeah.
What a gentleman!
Yeah, and, he did great work on Channel Zero, and I think we're going to do some other stuff in the future together. He's a good guy, good friend.
Yeah, he was really great to talk to, and I really enjoyed the time that I spent with him on the phone, and I'm really looking forward to Cult of Chucky. I've been watching his. I've been watching all his posts. He's traveling the world promoting the hell out of it. So good for him and good for you.
It's really good. It's really good.
Awesome, man. Well, Nick Antosca has been our guest here on this episode of the Necronomicast. We're looking forward to Channel Zero, Season 2, 3, 4, and to infinity and beyond. This has been Brian, and on behalf of the co-hosts Wayne, Lori, Zip, and Doug, we want to thank you for listening. Nick, thanks again, man.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hi.
I don't think I can handle. She goes channel to channel. Oh, looking for that hero. She watch Channel Zero.
You've been listening to the Necronomicast, a podcast hosted by a bunch of blood bags and produced by Brian Corey and Wayne Brecky. For show notes and other interesting information, go to the show page at necronomicast.com. And until next time, find something better to do with your time.